Business owners and leaders are people who I have huge respect for because our world, which is constantly in a state of change, requires for them to keep on growing. The biggest mistake made, though, is that most leaders develop their competencies and not their capacity, which causes an implosion in influence and effectiveness. So in this video, I'll explain the difference between competencies and capacity, and I'll share with you what I call the capacity gap diagram, which visually illustrates how leaders need to grow if they want to grow their business today and, of course, in the changing world of the future. So what do I mean by capacity? Well, I'm not talking about capacity in a scheduling or workload kind of context. I'm referring to our inner capacity. And let's use an analogy. Think of leadership competencies as programs that run on a computer. That computer, of course, being you, the leader. Now, those programs or competencies become increasingly more effective if using a more advanced operating system. So leadership capacity is about developing our internal operating system. Of everything installed on a computer, the operating system is the most important part because its primary function is to coordinate the programs and make sure that each one has what it needs to function so that the user is able to do what he or she wants to do as efficiently and effectively as possible. It's difficult to appreciate the computer's operating system because it's invisible. You can't see it. You can only observe its effectiveness by how the programs function on the computer. And so similarly, as leaders, or as a leader, you have a complex system of mindsets, self-regulatory strategies, values, beliefs, assumptions, fears, levels of self-awareness or mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and identities. The list goes on. And these are all central to your effectiveness. These things regulate your focus, influences your choices, drives your behaviors, and determines the effectiveness of your actions. And it's difficult to appreciate your internal operating system since it's difficult to observe it directly. You can only observe its effectiveness through how its programs function, similar to a computer, right? And so this is the reason why I think most leadership development tends to focus on the programs, the competencies. For example, if a certain program isn't working, like let's say for a leader, conflict resolution, right? That leader is sent to, say, a communications training workshop, thinking that that will solve the problem. But the real problem might be that that leader's internal operating system isn't yet programmed with the right perspectives or right mindfulness or right emotional intelligence to be able to solve that problem. And so this is why we need to work on both our inner and outer games of influence. In my work around the world, working with leaders from over 40 countries, what I have noticed is that if we only focus on developing our outer game of influence, which are the things that we need to do and say in order to influence other people or lead other people, but if we never ever focus on developing our inner game of influence, that self-influence, which is our thoughts, behaviors, beliefs, that internal operating system, that capacity, then inevitably our outer game will revert back to what it was in the first place. So our competencies are like the programs and our capacity is like our internal operating system. And the escalating complexity of the WISE world that we face makes a demand on us to continually develop our capacity as leaders. Now, by the way, I just said we live in a WISE world. And, what did I mean by WISE? Well, WISE, W.I.S.E, is an acronym. And in my white paper titled Redefining Business Significance in a WISE World, I unpack 4 trends that are really changing the world. I've observed these 4 trends in the world after working with leaders, like I mentioned, in over 40 countries, leaders in business, in politics, in military, in academia. And no matter where in the world I work with people, I see these 4 trends. Like I mentioned, they make the acronym WISE, and each letter stands for Widening, Intertwining, Surprising, and Escalating. And so these are 4 characteristics of the world that we live in today. Now, it's not in the scope of this video to really unpack these 4 trends. If you want to learn more about them, then I do have some other videos where I unpack them in more detail and explain what's happening with the trend, how it's impacting the world, how it's impacting your business and you as a leader. So you can go ahead and check those videos out. But suffice to say, for this video, the world is changing the entire time. That's why the wiser the world becomes, the more capacity we need as a business owner or as a leader to navigate this change. In other words, our capacity individually and collectively as a company or a team must be more than a match for the complexity our world demands. Otherwise, we just get left behind. And if we only focus on competencies and ignore capacity, we get in the way of the very things that we're trying to accomplish, right? We act in self-defeating ways. For most of us, our self-influence, which could be categorized as being, the complexity and structure of our internal meaning-making system, our decision-making system, our level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and the inner beliefs and assumptions by which we define and deploy ourselves moment to moment in the world, all of that will lack capacity to thrive in the ever-increasing complexity that our wise world presents. In today's world, leaders need to be able to adapt to and leverage the escalating changes around them. And it's critically important to do that by upgrading your internal operating system or your leadership capacity as a leader. If you don't do this, you're going to lose significance. And you see, your business ultimately grows by holding significance in the lives of the people it employs, the market it serves, the causes it supports. And without gaining and retaining significance, companies are eventually disrupted, replaced, or they just simply cease to matter over time. So if you're a business owner or a leader in your business, what should you do next? Well, start by exploring some of the points that I've made in this video, share this video with a colleague, and start to discuss a proactive approach to upgrading everyone's leadership capacity. On this page, I'll also include information on how you could work with me personally if you want to, for me to help you with narrowing that capacity gap of where you are and where you need to be in order to navigate the change that's around us. And also on this page, we'll include links to additional resources. Like the next topic that I'll be releasing, which I really recommend you get into as soon as it comes out, is the difference between reactive and responsive leadership. I'll be sharing the dynamics of each, including the reasons why so many leaders unconsciously struggle with change and ways that we can easily start reacting in self-defeating ways. This happens all the time to leaders, so it's really vital to go through that to help you and your company remain significant and to grow, especially in this increasingly widening, intertwining, surprising, and escalating world. If you found this helpful, don't leave before subscribing so I can continue to serve you. And as always, I invite you to find me on your favorite social media platform. Follow me, comment on any of my material, because then we can have a conversation, and I would so love to connect with you personally. From me, your coach and friend Gilan, thank you so much for your interest in leadership and in influence and significance, and I'll see you again soon.